Hello, everyone. It is still Monday, April the 5th, 2021, and the 23rd Nissan 5781. And I am still at my favorite coffee place, Panera, in the beautiful mountains of North Carolina. And the sun is still out and shining. We have our weather could change in a moment, just like that here. And last I heard, though, it's supposed to be sunshiny all day, so we'll see. But even when it rains, it's a blessing from God. And I personally prefer the rain. It's calming fact for me. And I usually don't give out any insights of what I'm, or doing any study related information. Because that's not really what God has wanted me to do with this. But there is a part in here where I am going to go and read a portion of it out of the study Bible insight, because I feel like that it is something that God is wanting me to do. So we're going to start in chapter 13, in verse 1. Adonai said to Moshe, "Set aside for me all the firstborn, whatever is first from the womb among the people of Israel, both of humans and of animals, belongs to me." Moshe said to the people, "Remember this day on which you left Egypt, the abode of slavery, because Adonai, by the strength of his hand, has brought you out of this place. Do not eat chametz. You are leaving today in the month of Aviv. When Adonai brings you into the land of the Canaanite, Hittite, Amorite, Hava, and Yebusi, which he swore to your ancestors to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you are to observe this ceremony in this month. For 7 days you are to eat matzah, and the seventh day is to be a festival for Adonai. Matzah is to be eaten throughout the 7 days. Neither chametz nor leavening agents are to be seen with you throughout your territory. On that day you are to tell your son, 'It is because of what Adonai did for me when I left Egypt.'" So the seventh day of the we just celebrated that this past Saturday this year. It said that the seventh day is to be a festival. So we've already celebrated our Passover, and then this was the seventh day after the Passover. We celebrated Saturday. So verse 9, "Moreover, it will serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes, so that Adonai's Torah may be on your lips, because with a strong hand Adonai brought you out of Egypt." So this is where I'm going to stop and do a little bit of extra knowledge here. So in Revelations 13:16, it says that the mark of the beast will be on the right hand and the forehead. I'm not seeing anything in here yet about whether the mark that Adonai is talking about is on the left hand or if it's on the right hand. But Satan he tries to do everything opposite of what God says to do. So like where the true Sabbath is on the Saturday, he has people believing that it's actually on a Sunday. And I've done that until like 2 years ago. That's what I was doing. This is what I thought, but I've come into the truth. So we're talking about so over here in Deuteronomy 11 verses 13 to 21, it says this is just some extra study material about those verses, and also refers back to Exodus 13:9. One of the most ancient commands the scriptures of the scriptures is that the Hebrew people that tie certain reminders of their relationship to God on their hands and foreheads, like the mezuzah on the door and the tzitzit on the garments. They were reminders of God's commands, even on a Hebrew man's body. From ancient times, traditional Jews have fulfilled this commandment in the custom called tefillin. The Hebrew word is related to the word for prayer, tefillah, and provides the focus of this tradition. Tefillin were designed to provide practical helps for the prayer life of the Jew. Over the generations, the tefillin took the shape of leather boxes that contained portions of the Torah that were strapped to the forehead and to the hand. This type of tefillin existed before the 1st century, as there are references to them in Jewish literature. Josephus, the Jewish historian, mentioned the use of tefillin as did an early Talmudic sage, who spoke of receiving the tefillin handed down from his grandfather. The more recent discoveries of the Dead Sea Scrolls have also confirmed that the Qumran community used many of their parchments in their tefillin. Although there have been variations to this custom throughout the ages, the practice of tefillin has remained remarkably unchanged for over 2 millennia. Some pious Jews of earlier days wore tefillin constantly. However, the common practice today among observant Jews is for males over the age of 13 to wear these leather boxes at daily morning services. By doing so, they are reminded that the commandments of God should be on their mind, their forehead, and applied in their life, their hand. Jewish tradition developed 2 distinct parts of the set of tefillin. For the head, shel rosh, and for the hand, shel yod. Shel rosh consists of 4 individual compartments, each containing a parchment with handwritten passages from the Torah, Exodus 13:1-16, Deuteronomy 6:4-9, Deuteronomy 11:13-21. In contrast, shel rosh is a single compartment that holds all of the same passages written on a single parchment. Passages that have the common commandment to bind the word of God to one's forehead and hand. Some have compared tefillin to putting on the armor of God for spiritual battle, Ephesians 6:10-20.
We're on the same page now.
So, people tend to think that the mark of the beast is where we're going to have the number 666 written on us, or it's going to be like some chip placed in us or something. But it's actually, you can actually see what that mark is. It's going to fall in line with, what God is wanting us to have on us. But it's going to be geared towards the devil. So that, what we're going to be keeping, it's going to be satanic in nature, where this is godly in nature. That's going to be satanic in nature. So just a little insight there. So now we're starting in chapter 13 of Exodus, verse 10. Therefore you are to observe this regulation at its proper time, year after year. When Adonai brings you into the land of the Canaanite, as he swore to you and your ancestors, and gives it to you, you are to set apart for Adonai everything that is first from the womb. Every firstborn male animal will belong to Adonai. Every firstborn from a donkey you are to redeem with a lamb. But if you choose not to redeem it, you must break its neck. But from people you are to redeem every firstborn son. When at some future time your son asks you, "What is this?" then say to him, "With a strong hand Adonai brought us out of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. When Pharaoh was unwilling to let us go, Adonai killed all the firstborn males in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of humans and the firstborn of animals. This is why I sacrifice to Adonai any male that is first from the womb of an animal, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. This will serve as a sign on your hand and at the front of a headband around your forehead, that with a strong hand Adonai brought us out of Egypt." So, and another thing I wanted to point out to you, and I forgot earlier, was that this took over a year from the time that Moshe entered Egypt to tell Pharaoh that God was wanting him to release the slaves, Israelites, until they were actually released. And we know that because the plague of hail happened in the month of Aviv or Nisan. And then their deliverance came in the month of Nisan or Aviv. So that's, it takes a while sometimes. Sometimes, our deliverance comes, we ask him and it happens like basically immediately. And other times we still have to go through, a long period before it actually comes. But it will happen. Verse 17. After Pharaoh had let the people go, God did not guide them to the highway that goes through the land of the Plishtim, because it was close by. God thought that the people, upon seeing war, might change their minds and return to Egypt. Rather, God led the people by a roundabout route through the desert by the Sea of Suf. The people of Israel went up from the land of Egypt fully armed. Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, for Joseph had made the people of Israel swear an oath when he said, God will certainly remember you, and you are to carry my bones up with you away from here. They traveled from Sukkot and set up camp in Etam at the edge of the desert. Adonai went ahead of them in a column of cloud during the daytime to lead them on the way, and at night in a column of fire to give them light. Thus they could travel both by day and by night. Neither the column of cloud by day nor the column of fire at night went away from in front of the people. Chapter 14. Adonai said to Moshe, tell the people of Israel to turn around and set up camp in front of Pi Hahiroth, between Migdal and the sea, in front of Baal Zephon. Camp opposite by the sea. Then Pharaoh will say that the people of Israel are wandering aimlessly in the countryside. The desert has closed in on them. I will make Pharaoh so hard-hearted that he will pursue them. Thus I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will realize at last that I am Adonai. The people did as ordered. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants had a change of heart toward the people. They said, what have we done, letting Israel stop being our slaves? So he prepared his chariots and took his people with him. He took 600 first-quality chariots, as well as all the other chariots in Egypt, along with their commanders. Adonai made Pharaoh hard-hearted, and he pursued the people of Israel as they left boldly. The Egyptians went after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, with his cavalry and army, and overtook them as they were encamped by the sea, by Pi Hahiroth, in front of Baal Zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and saw the Egyptians right there, coming after them. In great fear, the people of Israel cried out to Adonai and said to Moshe, was it because there weren't enough graves in Egypt that you brought us out to die in the desert? Why have you done this to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we tell you in Egypt to let us alone? We'll just go on being slaves for the Egyptians? It would be better for us to be the Egyptian slaves than to die in the desert. Moshe answered the people, stop being so fearful. Remain steady and you will see how Adonai is going to save you. He will do it today. Today you have seen the Egyptians, but you will never see them again. Adonai will do battle for you. Just calm yourselves down. Adonai asked Moshe, why are you crying to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift your staff. Reach out with your hand over the sea and divide it in two. The people of Israel will advance into the sea on dry ground. As for me, I will make the Egyptians hard-hearted, and they will march in after them. Thus I will win glory for myself at the expense of Pharaoh and all his army, chariots, and cavalry. Then the Egyptians will realize that I am Adonai, when I have won myself glory at the expense of Pharaoh, his chariots, and his cavalry. Next, the angel of God, who was going ahead of the camp of Israel, moved away and went behind them, and the column of cloud moved away from in front of them and stood behind them. It stationed itself between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. There was cloud and darkness here, but light by night there, so that the one did not come near the other all night long. Now, I don't have any proof for this, and I might find out later on that, what I'm fixing to say is truthful, and then again we could find out later on that I'm wrong, or we may not find out anything at all. I don't know. But this is my own thought, was that that in one of these, that God was either the cloud of fire. Let's see. The column of cloud, or he was in the column of fire. I feel like he was in one of those, and Jesus, Yeshua, was in the other one. And of course, God is Yeshua and also the Holy Spirit. They're all three one. They're separate in one, and I can't really explain it, and I don't understand it fully, but I know it is. So, and Yeshua is the Son of God. So, if I try to get really technical, and I might wind up speaking wrong, so I won't go any more technical than that. But I really do feel like that, Yeshua was there too. That it wasn't just an angel, that the angel of God was actually Yeshua. Verse 21, Moshe reached his hand out over the sea, and Adonai caused the sea to go back before a strong east wind all night. He made the sea become dry land, and its water was divided in two. Then the people of Israel went into the sea on the dry ground. Pay attention to that. That's dry ground, with the water walled up for them on the right and on their left. The Egyptians continued their pursuit, going after them into the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and cavalry. Just before dawn, Adonai looked out on the Egyptians' army through the column of fire and cloud and threw them into a panic. He caused the wheels of their chariots to break off, so that they could move only with difficulty. The Egyptians said, Adonai is fighting for Israel against the Egyptians. Let's get away from them. So I feel like at this point where the Egyptians are, it's muddy. I might be wrong, but that's just what I got out of it. Adonai said to Moshe, reach your hand out over the sea, and the water will return and cover the Egyptians, and with their chariots and cavalry. Moshe reached his hand out over the sea, and by dawn the sea had returned to its former depth. The Egyptians tried to flee, but Adonai swept them into the sea. The water came back and covered all the chariots and cavalry of Pharaoh's army who had followed them into the sea. Not even one of them was left. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground in the sea, with the water walled up for them on the right side and on the left. On that day, Adonai saved Israel from the Egyptians. Israel saw the Egyptians stand on the shore. When Israel saw the mighty deed that Adonai had performed against the Egyptians, the people feared Adonai, and they believed in Adonai and in his servant Moshe. Then Moshe and the people of Israel sang this song to Adonai. I'm going to actually try to sing it. I don't know exactly how it went, and I'm not a good singer, but I think it give more meaning to it if I try to sing it. I will sing to Adonai, for he is highly exalted. Horse and its rider he threw in the sea. Yah is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation. This is my God, I will glorify him. My Father's God, I will exalt him. Adonai is a warrior, Adonai is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he hurled into the sea. His elite commanders were drowned in the sea of Suf. Deep waters covered them. They sank to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, Adonai, is sublimely powerful. Your right hand, light, shatters the foe. By your great majesty, you bring down your enemies. You send out your wrath to consume them like stubble. With the blast from your nostrils, the water piled up. The water stood up like a wall. The depths of the sea became firm ground. Enemies said, I will pursue and overtake, by the spoil and gorge myself on them. I will draw my sword, my hand will destroy them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty? Who is like you, sublime in holiness, awesome in praises, working wonders? You reached out with your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your love you led the people you redeemed. In your strength you guided them to your holy abode. The peoples have heard and they tremble. Anguish takes hold of those living in Pashut. Then the chiefs of Edom are dismayed. Trepidation seizes the heads of Moab. All those living in Canaan are melted away. Terror and dread fall on them. By the might of your arm they are still as stone. Until your people pass over, Adonai, to the people you purchased passed over. You will bring them in and plant them on the mountain which is your heritage, the place, Adonai, that you made your abode, the sanctuary, Adonai, which your hands established. Adonai will reign forever and ever. For the horses of Pharaoh went with his chariots and with his cavalry into the sea, but Adonai brought the sea waters back upon them, while the people of Israel walked on dry land in the midst of the sea. Also Miriam the prophet, sister of Aharon, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with the tambourines dancing, as Miriam sang to them, Sing to Adonai, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he threw in the sea. Moshe led Israel onward from the sea of Suf. They went out into the Shur desert, but after traveling 3 days in the desert, they had found no water. They arrived at Marah, but couldn't drink the water there because it was bitter. This is why they called it Marah, bitterness. The people grumbled against Moshe and asked, What are we to drink? Moshe cried to Adonai, and Adonai showed him a certain piece of wood, which, when he threw it into the water, made the water taste good. There Adonai made laws and rules of life for them, and there he tested them. He said, If you will listen intently to the voice of Adonai your God, do what he considers right, pay attention to his mitzvot, and observe his laws, I will not afflict you with any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, because I am Adonai, your healer. They came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and camped there by the water. Now I don't know if this has any significant meaning, but it's kind of unusual to me that there's 12 springs, and there's 12 tribes of Egypt, of the Israelites, and 70 palm trees. and 70 are the numbers of the nations.